Chapter 9, Buying a Home. Whether you decide to rent a home or own a home, your choice of that home reflects personal factors in your life. These factors include your personal tastes, your age, the stage of life you're in, your family size and circumstances, your health, and your career choices. These factors are reflected in your decision to own or rent, as well as the location, size, and how you use your home. Real estate is the real property such as land, building, and homes. Now, when you're renting, you're using someone else's property and paying a monthly fee to live there. Whereas if you're owning a home, you're in a long-term commitment resulting in ownership of the property. Now, there are pros and cons to renting and owning. With renting, there are less financial obligations. You aren't taking on a mortgage or a loan, for instance. And there are less maintenance expenses as it's the owner's responsibility to maintain the building. It also allows you to be more liquid and more mobile. So if you're in the early part of your career, this would make it easier for you to move around the country. If, let's say, you went to college in one state and then got a job in another afterwards. And for some folks in their careers, they may be moving to a variety of locations in the world. And in terms of liquidity, since your money is not locked into a home, you're able to use it for other things. Now, the downside of renting, though, is that there's no equity growth or store of value in that home. So as home prices go up, you're not benefiting from that equity because the property belongs to someone else. There are some lifestyle limitations. For instance, some properties don't allow for pets, and so you wouldn't be able to have a pet while renting, or it may cost you extra fees. And you may not be able to decorate or renovate as much as you would like since it's not your property. And your housing expense is less predictable because the property owner could increase rents, and so you won't know what to expect. And that may surprise you and impact your budget. As for the pros and cons for owning, it's the reverse of renting, right? So with owning, you are hopefully storing up value and equity as property values go up. You're able to decorate and renovate your home as you like within your budget, hopefully. And you're able to get a tax deduction for your mortgage interest, and your housing expenses are more predictable or steady over the years. Now, the downside, though, is that there is substantial financial obligation. Buying a home usually involves getting a loan. It is very costly in terms of annual expenses, not just the mortgage, but everything to maintain and upkeep the home. And so you're going to be less liquid because your money is in your house, and you're less mobile. You're less likely to move because you've got home ownership in one place. So our textbook doesn't go into rentals that much, so I wanted to give this diagram and an example since you're likely going to be renting before you get into home ownership. But for instance, when I was looking for a place to live, I would research the area and see what it costs to rent. And so I was looking at different areas like La Jolla and Encinitas and Carlsbad. And then I would compare the costs for the places that I was looking to rent. And then once I identified a place that I wanted to rent, I took a look carefully at the lease agreement for the dates, the costs, and making sure to document the condition of the rental unit so they know like any existing damages were not my fault. And then I did have a roommate at the time, so both of us were named on the lease. And then once I was living in the rental property, I tried to keep it in generally good condition. I didn't have to contact the owners for any repairs. And I made sure to get renter's insurance in case anything happened, which would protect my belongings that were inside the home. And then at the end of the lease, I actually hired someone to come in and clean the apartment so that it would be in the same condition as when I moved in. And I was able to get some of my security deposit back because I was deducted a little bit from my security deposit for some like holes in the wall and some broken blinds. Let's dive a bit deeper into that lease agreement. It's a legal document that defines the conditions of a rental agreement. And so they'll have a description and the address of the property, information about your owner or landlord, your name as the tenant, and then, of course, the effective date and length of the lease, which oftentimes is a year or 12 months. Although you can see if they have a longer lease option, like 18 months or 2 years, if they're willing to lower the monthly rent. There's a security deposit, which is usually your last and first month's rent combined, what the amount of your rent is and when it's due, usually the first of the month. What is the date of when something's considered late, and if there is any penalties for late rent payments, what's included in terms of utilities and appliances, what you're not allowed to do in the home, whether or not you're allowed to sublet the unit or transfer, and under what conditions can the landlord come into the rental unit to inspect or check things out. Now, whether you're renting or buying a home, you will want to assess its attributes. So what's the size of the home? So how many bedrooms or bathrooms do you need? Which rooms are most important to you? A big kitchen, a big yard? Is there a parking space or is there a garage? Do you need storage space? Do you need disability accommodations? What does the outside space needs are? Do you want a yard or a patio? How important is privacy? Are you looking for something with energy efficiency and other green features like solar or energy efficient appliances? What are the design features and appearance of the home? Location and environmental factors, like is the home close to a freeway, which can have some air quality issues? And then how close do you want to live to work, schools, shopping, family and friends, or other activities that you like to do? Now we can see here some different types of homes. Up here is a multiple unit dwelling, and this can be used to create rental income or to house extended family members. So say you live on the left side here and then you rent out on the right side. And then with mobile homes here, this is a large trailer that's fitted to utilities connections, and these can be installed on permanent sites and used as residences. Mobile homes can also be in a trailer park or a community where the owner rents a lot. Then we have a condominium. So the homeowner owns a unit in a multiple unit dwelling, and the common areas are owned and managed by the Condo Owners Association. And so condo owners pay a fee to cover these costs for the building maintenance and operating expenses for common areas like a gym or a pool or even like a little park. And then here is an example of cooperative housing, and this is a building or complex that's owned by a nonprofit association or corporation for the residents' use. The residents don't own the units, but they own shares in the cooperative association, which entitles them to the right to live in these housing units. And the biggest one in the US is in Brooklyn. So cooperative housing is quite popular in New York City. And so the most common type of home is the single family home. These are detached. You can see here is an example of a house. You own the property in terms of the house and the land that it sits on. Now, a common strategy in terms of home buying may be where you buy something more affordable, like a condo first, and then you use the equity in that, and as you grow in your career and in your salary, eventually sell that and purchase a home. And that's what I did. I got a condo shortly after college, and then after 7 years, sold that and purchased a home. But before looking for a house that has what you want, you need to figure out the price range that you can afford. A lender will look at a variety of things to see how much you can afford. They'll look at your income, your current debts, your credit history. So lenders will do their own calculations of how much debt you can afford, and they usually use the number 33% of your monthly gross income that should go towards your monthly housing costs, or the principal, which is the amount of the loan. The interest, this is the cost of the loan or financing the loan, any taxes and insurance. Put together, that's known as PITI. And that's usually calculated on a monthly basis when trying to figure out how much you can afford. Now, it's recommended that your PITI plus your other debt repayments should be no more than 38% of your gross income. And that can be adjusted for income level, credit score, and how much you put for your down payment. But in reality, we know in certain cities or states that real estate is very expensive. So in some places like San Diego, that percentage is probably higher for a lot of people. So let's look at a calculation for your mortgage affordability. So imagine that your gross income is $60,000. And so we want to divide that by 12 to get the monthly gross income. That'll be $5,000 a month. And then for the PITI and other debt payments, maybe like credit card payment, a car loan, student loan, whatever other debt payments you have, that can be about $1,900. So that's the 38% of the $5,000 gross monthly income. So then here in line 6, for instance, this is the monthly taxes and insurance. So that's like home insurance. And then with a little bit of subtraction, we can see what the affordable monthly mortgage payment is. Now, there's this thing called the mortgage factor, which we'll talk about in a moment. So then this will be your affordable mortgage. So this is the amount of the loan that you can afford. And we get that by taking the affordable monthly mortgage payment and dividing it by our mortgage factor and multiplying that by 1,000. Now, to figure out what your down payment will be, that's going to be usually 20% of the purchase price. And then we'll take the mortgage as a percentage of the purchase price. So if your down payment is 20%, the mortgage is going to be the remainder, or the 80%, because combined that's 100% of the purchase price of the home. And then to find the affordable purchase price, you'll take the affordable mortgage that you identified in line 9, which is 158,228, and divide that by 80%, because that's how much of the purchase price is in your loan. So when we take this number divided by the 80%, we will get an affordable purchase price of $197,785, so about $200K. And so for most buyers, they're going to use a real estate agent or realtor. So this is someone who has professional real estate license and helps people to buy, sell, or rent different types of housing and real estate. And they'll provide you with a listing of homes that fit your criteria and are in your budget. And the realtors on both sides, the buyer and the seller, they'll get paid for their services when a home is sold or purchased. Now, as you're looking at homes, you'll want to get the home inspected to see its condition and what it's going to cost you for any repairs or renovations. And so here's a list of the common things that get inspected. You'll want to hire a professional to do the home inspection, because the home inspector may find some major issues that might make you change your mind to not buy the house, or they can find issues and then you can negotiate with the seller to have them fix it before you purchase the home. Or you can even negotiate for them to drop the price if you're going to say that, you'll fix it yourself. Now, housing prices can be affected by business cycles, since business cycles are impacted by unemployment and income levels and inflation. So as you can see here in this graph on the left here, these numbers represent the index or the interest rate. And here are the years. And then here's the population in millions. So you can see here at the bottom is our interest rates. So like in the 1980s, interest rates were quite high. I remember that was when my parents bought their first home. And later on, as interest rates dropped, they refinanced in order to get a lower interest rate and pull equity out of the home. And we'll talk about that in a moment. And then you can see here interest rates have continued to go down up until 2020. Now, the Fed has raised interest rates in response to inflation, so we'll see this line tick back upward. As for the population, this red line, you can see that our population is growing, and so the demand for homes has increased. And over the years, the cost to build has also gone up thanks to inflation and other economic factors. And then home prices, you can see, go up and down over the decades. There was a peak in home prices in the 2000s, and then we had the real estate bubble where it burst, and the price of homes dropped considerably during that time. And if you recall, there was a lot of unemployment, a lot of foreclosures, and since then our economy has rebounded and the real estate market has gone up again. Let's talk about identifying the financing now. Since most of us don't have cash to buy a house outright, we'll have to take a loan or a mortgage, and mortgages require a down payment or a percentage of the purchase price paid in cash upon purchase. And the reason why lenders do this is because they want you to have some skin in the game. If you are putting out your own money, you're less likely to, foreclose or default on the loan or just walk away. And so most buyers will use cash that they've saved up, or as I mentioned before, if you had bought something smaller like a condo, and then when you sell that, the money you get from that sale can be put towards a down payment on a home, a larger house, or perhaps you might get a family gift. Maybe someone in your family, a parent, a grandparent, a relative, gives you some money to put towards your down payment. So here's an example of, let's say the purchase price was $250,000. I'm imagining this to be like a condo. And this is what different down payment percentages could be. You could put down anywhere between 5 and 50%. And so the smaller the down payment you put down, the bigger the mortgage amount that you'll need. So when you combine these two together, your down payment and how much for the loan, that equates to the $250K. And so the common rule of thumb is that 20% down payment, that's going to be $50K of the $250, and then your mortgage amount is the remainder. So that's the $200K. So when you take, now this assumes a interest rate of 4. And so the monthly mortgage payment that you'll pay, assuming a 20% down payment, would be around $954.83. So you can see the more you put in your down payment, your monthly payment will lower as well. So the less you put in the down payment, your mortgage monthly payment will be higher. So to figure out the monthly payment amount, that's based on the interest rate that you can get and the maturity or the length of the mortgage. And so ideally you want to try to get the lowest interest rate possible, so that will help lower your monthly payment. And that's going to be based on your credit score and how much down and the length of the loan, for instance. Note, if your down payment is less than 20% of the property sale price, again, you may have to pay for private mortgage insurance, which insures the lender against the cost of default if you can't pay your mortgage. So that's an additional cost on top of the monthly payment amount. So over here on the right is an example of a mortgage amortization, which is a schedule of the interest and the principal payments over the life of the loan. So it's helpful to see where your money is going. So let's say in the first month, remember that our monthly mortgage payment is around like a little under $1,000 from the last slide. How that gets broken out is that $667 of that goes towards interest, while $288 of that goes towards the principal. And then when you pay that, your balance on the loan will go down. And each month you can see that the interest slowly goes down while the monies that you pay towards principal goes up. And then of course with each month your balance on the loan will go down. Now, the most common kind of loan is called a fixed rate mortgage, and that's where the interest rate and the monthly payment are the same over the entire life of the mortgage. So conventional mortgages for fixed rate mortgages can be 30 years, 20 years, or 15 years. And so if, for instance, I have a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, so I pay the same amount every month for the next 30 years, and my interest rate is locked in at 2.5%. Earlier, I talked about the mortgage factor. This is the calculation of the payment for every $1,000 of the mortgage loan. And it's based on the interest rate and the length of the mortgage. So in your textbook, you see as an example, the mortgage factor at a 4% mortgage rate. At 30 years, it's 4.77. At 20 years, it's 7.4. And at 15 years, it's 6.06. So to calculate the monthly payment, you'll take the applicable mortgage factor based on the interest rate and length of the loan, multiply that by your principal, multiply that by the principal, which is the amount of the loan, and then divide that by 1,000. So for example, let's say you want to buy a $500,000 townhome and you have a 20% down payment, so that's around $100K. That means you're going to need to get a loan for the rest. So we would need to finance the $400,000 needed to combine with your down payment to get to that $500K townhome. We're going to get a 30-year 4% mortgage. So we'll go ahead and looking at the 30-year at the 4% interest rate, that's the factor of 4.77. So I'll take my 4.77 and then I'm going to multiply it by my loan of $400K. And then divide it by 1,000, and that will give me a monthly mortgage payment of $1,908. So there are some other mortgage designs for you to be aware of, aside from the fixed rate mortgage, again, which is the most common. Other options are an adjustable rate mortgage, or ARM. This is where the interest rate and thus the monthly payment can change. So if interest rates rise, your monthly payment will go up. But if interest rates fall, they will decrease. You can also get a home equity loan. So let's say you already own a home and there's equity in it thanks to property values going up. And that you've been, paying your monthly mortgage, so your balance has been going down, so you own more of your home. So the home equity loan is a second mortgage, and so you're borrowing against the equity in the home in case you need to do something with it. And then there's the home equity line of credit, or HELOC. This is a form of revolving credit. It lets you, as the homeowner, secure a line of credit or a loan that is borrowed and paid down as needed, with interest paid only on the outstanding balance. And last is a reverse mortgage. So this is designed to give homeowners with high equity a monthly income in the form of a loan. So essentially it's pulling money out of your mortgage and paying you as the homeowner so that you can use that money to live. It's a loan against your home that you don't pay back as long as you live there. And to be eligible, though, you have to own the home and be 62 years of age or older. So really, this is for senior citizens. And so the homeowner or their estate will repay the loan when the house is sold or when they die. Now that you've chosen a home and figured out the financing, let's go through the purchase process. So if your offer is accepted by the seller, you'll sign, both of you, something called a purchase and sale agreement, which specifies the conditions of the sale. So these are the things that must happen before closing on the sale of the home. There's earnest money that the buyer provides. So that's a non-refundable deposit when the agreement is signed. And then that money gets put into an escrow account. So this is a restricted account that gets applied towards the down payment or the closing costs. You might also hear about an escrow account after you've bought the home. This is where you're setting aside money to pay for things like property tax along with your mortgage payment. Now, when you are purchasing that home, it's important that you're aware of something called closing costs. So there are other costs that need to be paid to finalize that real estate transaction. And so closing costs include things like the appraisal of the home, a title search and contract for title insurance. So this is where they're researching if there's any claims or liens on the deed. And then some states even have a property transfer tax that is the responsibility of the buyer. So when you get that agreement, take a close look at the closing costs and make sure you understand all the components in there so that you're not getting charged something that you shouldn't be. And then once the conditions have been met and everything's signed and ready to go, you have your home. Now, once you own your home, you need to take care of it. And so this is referred to as capital expenditures, whether you're renovating or making repairs on your home. So if you decide to buy a fixer-upper, then you're going to be doing some renovations on your home. If you moved into the home and something breaks, you'll have to repair it. Note that with renovations, they should generally increase the resale value of your home, but it's important to understand the cost so that you're not spending so much on a renovation that it is bigger than its resale value if you decide to sell the property someday in the future. Something else to consider is you can do early payment. This could be a lump sum amount, or you can just pay a little bit more each month in addition to your monthly payment on the mortgage. This can, over time, help you pay off your loan sooner. Some mortgages have a penalty when you do this, but most don't. They don't mind getting your money early. So if you have extra money and you don't want to invest it in other places, you could put it towards your mortgage. And then as I mentioned before about refinancing, what my parents did at one point. So this is where you're setting up a new loan to replace your old loan. And people usually do this to reduce your interest rate. Maybe perhaps when you initially purchased the home, you had a higher interest rate. And then later on, you see that interest rates are dropping. You can get a new loan on the remaining balance at a hopefully lower interest rate. Now, a few final thoughts, and I hope this never happens to any of you, but it may be possible for a homeowner to default. This is where the borrower stops paying their mortgage. And so, for example, with the COVID-19 pandemic, some folks got laid off or they got sick and they couldn't work. And so they were unable to have the money they needed to pay their mortgage. So they were in default. Now, When default occurs, the lender has the right to foreclose on the home. So this is a legal process where the lender can recover how much is owed to them on the defaulted loan by taking the house back and then selling the property. If and when this happens, this also hurts your credit considerably. Now, fortunately though, during the COVID-19 pandemic, some lenders did offer forbearance because they knew that this was a temporary situation. And so a forbearance is a temporary postponement of your loan payments. And so for some folks, maybe they got a forbearance of like 3 to 6 months where they didn't have to pay their mortgage. And then once things got better, they just started making mortgage payments again. And so buying a home is one of the biggest purchases a person can make. And you can see that it's got a lot of steps, it's complex, and it involves a lot of investment. And it's not for everybody. So as you think about your future and think about what you want, you'll want to decide if home ownership is right for you.